Baseball MLB DFS Playbook live show here. Jonathan Impemba with James Grande breaking down Monday's 7-game main slate with you here tonight. James, 6:40 start time kicking off here on a Monday. DraftKings moving the slate up a little bit to include those 6:40 games here this evening. You were the man on the playbook. How you feeling about everything today, man?
I like today's slate. I know on this morning's podcast, as the better boss has chimed in first before we even kicked off. Shout out to you, Matt. Thanks for joining. But it's a fun little slate. I think pitching is gonna be tricky. That's probably the most difficult task today. I think there is a lot of elite offenses, and doesn't mean 100% of the time that these offenses are going to hit, but there are a lot of offenses in very, very good spots tonight. And good offenses. Like, this isn't like, oh, well, Miami's in a really good spot today, but they're Miami. Or this isn't the Tigers that are in a really good spot today, but it's the Tigers. Like, we have Houston, we have St. Louis, we have Texas, like, we have the Blue Jays. Like, there are a lot of really good offenses in really good spots today. Padres included in that list, the Phillies included in this list. So it's a fun slate for 7 games. I'm happy that the two sites came together, them being DraftKings and FanDuel, and decided to include these 640 games, because it would have been a little weaker without we wouldn't have had Aaron Nola on the slate. Right. That would have been brutal. We wouldn't have had the KC Miami game. We would have had a 5-game dinky slate on Monday. So it's a good overall slate, just 7 games, but a lot we could take advantage of here.
Mark Pitts Manoah might spiritually get carted off the field here today. I mean, yeah, listen, this is we'll obviously break down the pitching here, but Alek Manoah has been one of our favorite punching bags of the year once we both came to an agreement that no, he wasn't going to turn it around. He has just lost everything that he's had shown over the last few seasons here. But James, before we do start breaking down the positions, again, I want everybody to know who's tuning in. If you got any questions, get into the chat, type your question in there. We're more than happy to answer, whether it be a DFS lineup question, maybe you got some betting questions for us. You just had the better betting show on previously with Howard and Servo. You can carry that right over here into the DFS show as well. I have the PrizePicks article out on site. If you're not yet a member over on PrizePicks, you go to fantasyline.com/PrizePicks. Use promo code ALARM when you sign up there. You get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So I got some plays out there for everybody. And then, of course, they haven't been able to see James's playbook yet that's out on site because you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family. You go to fantasyalarm.com/all-pro. Use promo code MLB50. We'll save you 50% off the first 6 months. That's $19.98 a month for the first 6 months there. Really great deal. You get access to all of our content, not just the MLB content there, but the rest of the NBA, the rest of the NHL, NASCAR, MMA, PGA, you name it. We cover it. Plus, football season is right around the corner. We're going to be releasing our draft guide here in the coming weeks. If you sign up today, you get access to that draft guide as well. So no better time than now to join the Fantasy Alarm family. We have the premium Discord in there as well for you all to be part of. So a lot of great things happening here at Fantasy Alarm, and there's no better time than now to join up and do all of that winning with us here, James. So that said, why don't we take a look at Vegas, give us some high totals, give us the spreads that we should be keying in on here today.
So a lot of movement today in the Philly game specifically, and a lot of money coming in on Philly. They opened at -202. That is ballooned to -260 over on BetMGM and Caesars. It's up to 270, 275. So a lot of people on the Phillies today taking on the Detroit Tigers, and Joey Wentz headed to the mound there. Braxton Garrett and the Miami Marlins -160. I am repping the even though it's Florida Marlins, doesn't matter. Point remains. Shout out to Braxton Garrett and the Marlins -160, 165 in some places. -170 are the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Oakland Athletics. Alek Manoah, I mentioned it last night, and this last 2 times we've talked about it, where I've been like, well, Manoah's a favorite, and you're like, no. Manoah isn't the favorite.
The Blue Jays.
Yeah, the Blue Jays. That has actually shrunk. Manoah and the Jays open -132, now almost a pick'em, 115.
Yeah, because Manoah sucks.
Yeah, because Manoah sucks. Newsflash. Yep. -125 is Andrew Abbott making his major league debut for the Cincinnati Reds tonight, taking on the Julio Teheran led Milwaukee Brewers in Great American Ballpark. We have Martin Perez minus 140 and Blake Snell minus 170 taking on the Cubs in the late night hammer. I guess, are we still like, is late night hammer still translating? Like, that's what we call NBA. Do we need like
Yeah.
a new?
No, I
We
mean,
need
I
like a
still, I
new.
still think it counts. I mean, listen, when we created the late night hammers, because we're talking about the Warriors and Lakers, and you didn't play
All the
them,
West Coast.
you were just
Yeah.
losing
Yep.
every single night because they were dropping a bajillion points here. But I still think it matters. I mean, think about how often we have some of these like top tier pitchers out in the West Coast
True.
that are just pile on fantasy points there. If you don't have them, you get a 30 burger in your face there at the starting pitching spot here. So no, I still think the late night hammer plays a little bit. So that one. That works. Before we get into everything, we got Better Boss here with a seasonal question, so might as well just knock it out. He's streaming Yuli, Owen Miller, and J1 Bay today in a Yahoo Daily lineup, and wants to know our thoughts. For me, it's okay. J1 Bay's got a lefty spot, so not like not the best matchup for him. Owen Miller's got that rookie Abbott tonight. We like the strikeout potential, but obviously Miller had been really good, but he is starting to cool down. But he is one
leading
of the
off.
few, leading off. He's one of the few Brewers that can hit left-handed pitching. And then Yuli, maybe he does his damage there against the opener because we do like Mayer here when he comes in the lineup. So, maybe not the best days for two of the three there, but you never know. Certainly can get some opportunities. So that said, James, let's jump into some DFS here. And again, if you guys are paying attention, you got any questions for us, let us know. We'll start off at pitching. We talked about it. Thankful to have the 640 slates because two of our favorite pitchers on the slate are in the 640 games. We have Aaron Nola at $10,200. We got Braxton Garrett at $8,300. The big drop off in pricing on this slate. So talk to me, man. Those are my two favorites. I know you're in agreement, but which one do you prefer if you had to rank
them? Nola won. Like, I understand for anybody that doesn't want to get to Aaron Nola because he hasn't been great this year, and not even really the peripheral numbers suggest that there's like bad luck. His expected ERA and his xFIP and his Sierra are all low fours, but still like nothing, significantly better. But he faces an offense that obviously is a little depleted, missing Riley Green. Zach McKinstry is legitimately their best player, and that's like a little terrifying. And they still are in the bottom two of pretty much every category. OPS, ISO, and WOBA, they're 27th or worse in every category. They still rank in the top 10 against right-handed pitching in terms of strikeout rate. So it's Nola for me. And you factor in like the only like real downside, I'd say, to Braxton Garrett is the pitch count, which we talked about on the podcast this morning. Miami just has a thing with him about the pitches. Now, is he very efficient when he's out there? Obviously, because he's getting pretty deep into pretty much every start, at least,
Well, that's the thing, right? 80 pitches through 5 should get him at least 6 innings, right? Unless their cap on him is 85, which it seems to be. He's only gone over 85 once through 87 pitches against Arizona, and then everything else has been 85 or under. So, if 85 of his pitch count, it's good to see him getting 5. He's got to throw a one. I mean, the San Francisco thing just blows my mind. 76 pitches. He threw a one-hitter shutout against San Francisco, and they pulled him.
Yeah.
I don't understand. San Diego, same thing. 5 1/3, 2 hits, allowed 1 run. Pulls him at 79 pitches there, mid-inning in both of those games, middle inning, pulling him. I just don't understand what that is, unless, I don't even know. Are they sticking to like this, like 2 times through the order thing? Like, they could have some sort of analytics that they're paying attention to, but I mean, this is the guy that could be giving us 3 30-point outings in his last 4, not 3 20-point outings in his last 4. So I agree with you. And I think, honestly, that's why his pricing is depressed as it is. I mean, the guy was I say depressed. He got a 2K price bump. It's a smaller slate, but, if he was giving us 30 points, he might be 9K and not 8K here. So into the Nola point, we talk a lot about pitchers that have had just like some really tough schedules. I mean, Mets, Atlanta, Chicago, in Coors, Toronto, the Dodgers, Houston, home against the Rockies. Actually had an okay start there. In Cincinnati, Miami, the Yankees, the Rangers. I mean, he's really only had one-ish easy, 1.5 easy starts
Yeah.
on his schedule this year. So I agree with you. If he goes out there and gets rocked by Detroit, well, then maybe we reevaluate how we start looking at Aaron Nola. But the guy has certainly had to go through the sawmill here so far. What, 11 starts, 12 starts into the year?
The strikeout rate, I think it's the strikeout rate for me that's like really concerning because
Sure.
it's significantly lower than it's been. He has
Sure.
like a 7K per nine, which is almost 2.5 like lower than his career average.
Is
He
that
did have
matchup based as well, though? I mean, the Toronto doesn't strike out, Houston doesn't strike out. Teams like that with low K
yeah.
rates potentially.
I mean, largely the schedule has been that way. Um, but even against, I mean, Houston, he had 6 in the depressed. He did have the 10 against Chicago, and then I mentioned it a bunch of times. Atlanta is a team that's very dangerous, but strikes out a lot. He did have 7, so yeah, it could be. And could there be positive regression coming in that facet? I hope so. He's significantly, like by a mile. He's nearly 50% owned across the industry.
Yeah, I know this DFS, but if I'm in a season long league, I might see what the
Bye.
Aaron Nola managers
Well,
thinking
don't
about.
offer me, John, because I have him in our league, and
Oh, do you?
I ain't selling. I ain't
I'm
selling.
pretty much leading most of our pitching categories
Yeah.
in our Roto League anyway. So
Yeah.
unless you have saves plus holds to give me, I don't really need.
I
really need
do.
any help. I don't really need any of your help.
Well, I need power from you. You don't have any either.
I don't have
so
any. I'm dead last in home runs. We'll see what happens there. All right. Anyway, so that's our top tier pitching here. I said earlier on the podcast, I'm fading Julio Teheran. Outside of his FIP, which is decent, everything else is pretty bad. His xFIP's high, his Sierra is high. His expected ERA is 3.8, but he's got a under 1. So like there's still negative regression expected there. He's not striking anybody out. He's got a high left on base average here. And you have him now pitching in Cincinnati, which is generally a good hitter's environment. Now he was pitching in Toronto, which we consider to be a good hitting environment, and he only gave up 4 hits, no earned. Didn't have any strikeouts in that game. But maybe Cincinnati at home can get to him. I don't want to pay the 8,700 there. What are your thoughts on Blake Snell against Chicago?
So he's going to be pretty popular here. And I like Snell more on FanDuel. He's 9,500 over there. And, you don't get dinged for all the base runners over there as you would on DraftKings. Like Snell just continues to walk too many batters. 4 walks in 2 of his last 4. He's had 2 or more walks in all but 2 starts this year. And that's not, the hits are there. Like he still gives up a lot of home runs. So I like him more on FanDuel. I get why people are getting there. He's looked better overall outside of the start against Boston. I mean, he's been good. Really, for a large part of the year, he's been good outside of Boston.
The strikeout numbers are kind of down for him this year.
Strikeout numbers are a little down for sure. I also worry the Cubs are 5th in OPS against left-handed pitching this year. Yeah. And I know they've been like one of their best left-handed power bats or right-handed power bats. Patrick Wisdom's like 1 for his last 50. And they're not as good as they were earlier in the year. Ian Happ has essentially been a 0 against lefties as well. But I'm okay with getting to Snell. I prefer Nola, I prefer Garrett, and I prefer some guys that are significantly cheaper than him.
Yeah, let's jump into the mid tier then, because again, we looked at this tier. There wasn't a lot that we liked. Martin Perez against St. Louis, Sears against Pittsburgh. Manoah's got Houston, Vielak's got Toronto. We had maybe some mild interest in Sears because he had been pitching well, and we do like him generally, but we also know that Pittsburgh has some just monster bats against lefties that can do some damage there. And Sears is another guy. They had that random game where they pulled him out for like 60 pitches and we didn't know what the hell was going on. With that here, St. Louis is a team that hasn't profiled well against lefties this year, but has guys historically that hit lefties well. I don't know if we want to trust Martin and Perez. When we talked about it on the podcast, we kind of just went to Abbott at 4K and we're like, we'll just bite the bullet with the value play on a short slate. But you did the playbook today. Has anything changed for you when it comes to mid-tier pitching options?
Yeah, so you're not wrong on the Abbott thing. I think Andrew Abbott is rightfully garnering a lot of attention today and getting a lot of ownership coming his way. Now, he's not the most owned pitcher. He's not even second. He's 4th behind Nola, Snell, Garrett. But I think it's completely warranted. The high strikeout rate for Milwaukee, he had the massive strikeout rate in AAA, and Milwaukee ranks dead last in literally every category other than ISO, which they're 27th in against left-handed pitching. So all that still remains true. I love Abbott 4K. I'm willing, like you said, willing to bite the bullet in Great American. I do have interest in Johan Oviedo, who has been very up and down this year. I understand it. The walks have been absolutely killer. He has 2 5-walk games over his last 4 starts that have obviously kept him from going deep into games. Both those games, he only allowed 1 earned and less than 4 hits, but you can't get deep into games if you're walking 5 batters. Like, it's just impossible. Because he's also like a decent strikeout guy. He has 5 or more strikeouts in 3 straight starts. And he's done that a handful of times, including a 10 strikeout game earlier this year. But Oakland is just so bad against right-handed pitching. They're 30th in OPS. They're 30th in WOBA. And they're below league average in walk rate. So I think this is a situation where Oviedo could limit some walks here. He is the second best. He has the second best odds, him and his team, to win tonight. 23 plus DraftKings points 4 times this year. So we have upside. So I like Oviedo. And you kind of flirted with it earlier, John, the Mike Myers thing. No, not the villain. You mentioned on the podcast, I think you phrased this perfectly. He's not the villain. His team is the villain for not starting him at this point based on his last 2 outings. 6 innings. He had the perfect game going against St. Louis before the 2 hits. But 6 innings, he got a win. He only had 3 strikeouts, but he had 22 DraftKings points. And the start before, and I mentioned this during the live stream we did for the St. Louis game, 4 2/3 against Detroit, 8 strikeouts in that outing. And not that Miami is this team that has this like massive strikeout rate against right-handed pitching, because they're not. They do have a decent strikeout rate, 23% against right-handed pitching. They are also 22nd in OPS. Jorge Soler not in the lineup tonight for the Marlins. I like Mike Myers. They're going to only go with Carlos Hernandez for an inning, possibly 2. So we're talking about Myers. Let's say he just gives us 4 innings, but those 4 innings, he qualifies for a win. Like, he just needs to get through the 5th and can get us a win.
Well, that's what happened in St. Louis. He Hernandez pitched, Myers came in, and the Royals took the lead, and he was able to get the win even though he didn't start the game. So, listen, I agree with you. $6,600. It's a risk because he's not starting, and if Casey goes out and scores right away, but we're not really projecting that because we like Miller tonight. We think this is going to at least be a game that could take a little bit to some runs to be scored. So I'm with you. It's a non-traditional approach to play an opener. But if you'd played Sean Manaea the last like 3 times, you're out there with a kind of like 20 fantasy points because he's thrown 4 innings, which I've shot out baseball. So I agree with you. There's some interesting value here on tonight's slate, going obviously with Abbott, but Myers is there. What are your thoughts on Hendricks? Any interest? The guy coming out, hasn't been terrible. Tampa Bay, 5 innings, an earned run allowed. Didn't get it, no decision in that one. But San Diego, we talk about them a lot, but record-wise, they're bad. Offensively, they have guys that are still underperforming outside of a couple. Anything on Hendricks here for you?
Yeah, I think he's going to get crushed.
Okay.
They're just like, so this is why I think this slate is so intriguing offensively. There are so many pitchers on this slate with like underlying numbers that are just like screaming stack against. And Kyle Hendricks is one of them. And I know it's been a small sample, but 5.75 xFIP, only an 18% K rate. Everything is hard hit. He's allowing way too many fly balls. I know and I understand, and I continue to talk about the Padres, and you continue to be like, yeah, but they kind of suck.
Friday was such a disappointment, man.
That was horrible. They have some bats that are waking up. I'm going right back to the well. I don't think Hendricks is long for this game. He's also been significantly better throughout his career at home, and I know San Diego is a good pitching environment, but that doesn't scare me off the Padres offense. I think this is a great spot for them.
All right, let's go into catcher position here. As we mentioned, there's a lot of hitting matchups that we like here tonight. Jonah Heim, Mitch Garver were two that we keyed in on during this morning's podcast. I tweeted about it earlier today, and you talked about it as well. Like the Rangers lineup tonight is just like the best lineup they've put on paper. I jokingly said, can't wait for Adam Wainwright to have a turn back the clock day because everybody tonight likes Texas. So for me, Heim and Garver are right in there for lineups today.
Yeah, really hard not to get to there. You know what's funny? Like Texas isn't even, and I think it's more of a pricing thing because unless you're using like Leotis Tavares and Ezekiel Duran, you can't really afford them. Truthfully, like if you're playing Aaron Nola and Snell or something like that, you really can't. I love Heim. I love Garver. They're my two favorite catchers of the night. I'm right there with you. I prefer Heim. He's been really, really good over the last how long? 50 games. That's how many games he's played. He's been good pretty much the entire year. So I prefer Jonah Heim. Mitch Garver has been awesome against right-handed pitching in a limited sample this year. 400 ISO, 430 WOBA. Again, just a 26 at-bat sample. So like take that for what it's worth. But Jonah Heim, 184 ISO, 332 WOBA is pretty good in his own regard.
Yep, I agree with you for sure. Mid-tier guys, what are our options at catcher? Are we still looking at Gary Sanchez? Should he be in the lineup here tonight?
Yeah, I mean, like you can play William Contreras if you wanted to against Abbott. I don't have a problem doing so. He hits lefties extremely well. He has 4 home runs over his last 6 games. So I like William Contreras at 44 if that's where you arrive. Definitely think you can go to Sanchez. I think the power bats are going to catch up to Hendricks. Can I play Abbott on FanDuel? So he's 8K. They had to add him to the player pool today. He's $8,000. Yeah, you could. I did a little deep dive on Abbott. I don't think there's any type of limitation on his pitch count tonight. He's thrown at least 87 pitches in his last 5 starts at AAA, including 97 as his max. So it doesn't feel like there's anything capped. I just don't know, like, he's a high strikeout guy. If he gets into the 5th inning with a lot of strikeouts and a lot of pitches, are you going to qualify for a quality start over there? That would be my only worry.
We've seen some mixed results from these guys coming up. Obviously, Bryce Miller came up through a near perfect game, for 6 innings or 7 innings. We've also seen guys come up and just get shelled. So, there's definitely a potential on FanDuel, especially because you only need the one starter. Usually the pitchers are crazy priced up. So if you're getting a starter at 8K, you can almost just use every top price hitter the way they price guys over on FanDuel. So, we talked about the high strikeout potential. The Brewers against lefties. What is it, like almost 5% more strikeout?
2.1% more than any other player in baseball.
Well, half of what I said, but still a lot in the range of percentages.
Yeah.
Are they still over 30%, right? Yeah, in that range?
It's like just under 30. Under 30.
So a high strikeout percentage for Milwaukee against lefties here. So, Prince, if you want to go ahead and do it, sure. Definitely not going to argue against it, because like we said, we like Nola, but Nola hasn't been Nola this year. He's just in a good spot. We like Miller, but he's been limited for pitches. So, you could be spending up on a guy that's going to give you probably no more than what Abbott ends up giving you anyways, if things go the way we think could happen for Abbott tonight. So I'm fine if you want to take that one lineup and throw him out there for sure. Back to catcher, though, here, James. I mentioned, you think Hendricks gets lit. Sanchez is there with a lot of power at 3,700. Any other catchers on your radar here today? We do have Yan Gomes against a lefty on the slate.
Yep, and that's our boy, and we're going to the well with Yan Gomes. And the one thing that Snell hasn't done well this year, and Bars, by the way,
I was gonna say you're rhyming here.
Is Bars, by the way, is power. Like that's been the issue. 178 ISO to righties, 224 to lefties is interesting too. Not that the Cubs are like throwing any lefties out against them because it's projected to be 9 righties in the lineup.
Right.
But
I know you're not a BVP guy, but there is BVP here for Gomes.
I did see the BVP for Gomes last night when we were talking about it on the podcast.
5 for 13, a homer, 385 average, 769 slug.
It doesn't surprise me. Lefty. Dude, 400 ISO for Yan Gomes this year. 447 WOBA against lefties. Doesn't strike out. 49% fly ball rate against lefties. I mean,
I know he just sees the ball really well.
Yeah.
Coming from lefties. So I'm with you there. Yan Gomes, I have to imagine is playing tonight. I don't think we have an official lineup for the Cubs, or do we?
No.
Yeah. So $2,500 on a slate like this, more than willing to just throw Yan Gomes in here because we want
Gary
to spend
Sanchez
up.
in the lineup, by the way, hitting
Okay.
6th officially in the lineup.
Yep, I think both are fine. On this spot, Gomes just has that home run potential for us here. No reason really to play anybody else, right?
No.
Didn't think so. First base, talk to me, man. I like Goldschmidt here at $5,600. We know Nathaniel Lowe has that great matchup against Wainwright lefties this year against Adam Wainwright. Again, small sample size, but it's a 400 average, like a 760 slug or something like that. It's something absurd. So Nathaniel Lowe, Paul Goldschmidt are my top 2 first basemen here today.
Yeah, I got nothing really to add there. Other than righties do hit Brandon Bielak hard. So if you wanted to play Vladdy, no one's playing Toronto. We talk about this all the time. Holds true again today. No one's playing them.
It's because they got shut out by Julio Teheran. I mean, like
that is factually correct. There's proof to back that up, but I'm just saying
they could hang 20.
They could hang 20. They could hang 20. I don't think anyone would bat an eye, but I agree. I think it's Goldschmidt. I think it's Nathaniel Lowe. And then I think there's some interesting guys below, but one of the guys that I had interest in, Spencer Steer, hitting 4th. I don't know if this directly correlates because you could still play Steer as a one-off, but the Reds scratched Jake Fraley due to an allergy. I don't know if he had an allergic reaction, but he was leading off. So that obviously was a little less thump. I loved Jake Fraley tonight. He was in my playbook as a write-up, core play, all of that. He is no longer playing. So I don't know if that kind of depresses the Reds lineup a little. I mean, it does because now Kevin Newman's leading off versus Fraley, and we know Kevin Newman specifically is good against left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
But I would get to Spencer Steer. He's just been on fire, maybe more so as a one-off compared to a red stack or even as a mini stack. And then Connor Joe, 3,300, man, is just, again, you talked about it where we like JP Sears, and honestly, the numbers kind of back it up that he's been pretty good. But he's been pretty good in every category except power. Power has been his primary issue. 274 ISO allowed to right-handed batters, 59% fly ball rate, 41% hard hit rate.
Yeah.
Connor Joe, John, has a 310 ISO, a 425 WOBA against left-handed pitching, and is hitting 3rd tonight.
Yeah.
This isn't obviously being played in Oakland. That's a plus. So I love Connor Joe. I love the dual eligibility for Connor Joe. If you did want to play in the outfield, then use him in the stack with Carlos Santana, who's 2,900. I can't fault you for that either because Carlos Santana has been another guy in this Pirates lineup hitting lefties well.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. It's nice that they gave Connor Joe the dual position eligibility there as well for us. So if you wanted to kind of both throw them in there, it's out there. Any interest in Noda hitting 2nd tonight against Oviedo here? He's got some good power numbers against righties this year, 441 slug on the season.
Yeah. Lefties have given him issues. I don't know if I'm going to get there. There's a lot of strikeouts with Ryan Noda. I think if I were to take a shot at anyone down here, Lucan Baker for the Cardinals hitting 5th. He made his debut. He hit a lot of home runs at AAA before the call-up, and it's the Goldschmidt thing versus the Pujols thing, where if you're playing Lucan Baker, at least on DraftKings, you're not going to play Paul Goldschmidt. So can you afford to do that? That remains to be seen. But you can do it on FanDuel. And then Drew Ellis of the Phillies, I like that you could play him at 3rd base as well. He hit double donked on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Had good numbers in the minor leagues. The problem is, he's 27 years old and not but he had 1,000 OPS at AAA this year. So
yeah,
hitting 7th against Joey Wentz, who has been a gas can all year. I can't say I hate that because we talked about this last time. Philly was really popular today, and they came through. They're going to be really popular again today from what it looks like. And I like some pieces here. including Ellis, who's starting at first
Did
base
you
tonight.
see how big Lucan Baker is, by the way?
He's a massive. He's a
He's
massive dude.
listed at 6'4", 280 pounds.
Yeah, he's a massive dude. His head, like his headshot looks like he's like 7'3".
He's not a prospect. He's already 26 years old, but like you're not wrong about the power numbers. I mean, he's got 1,000 OPS against both lefties and righties. He's got a 600 slug against both lefties and righties on the year. I mean, he's just absolutely just hammering baseball. It's like the best. It's the best season he's had, to this point in his minor league career. Again, it's only been a couple of years here, but man, just last year at AAA he hit 228. This year he's hitting 313 with 18 homers. He had 21 homers in 124 games last season. He's got 18 and 54.
Yep.
So, just
breakout.
a lot of something. He's breaking out something. Breaking out something. We'll see. But
we'll see.
I was just stunned by the 6'4", 280. I mean, that's not a baseball player. That's a linebacker in the NFL.
Yep.
So,
yep.
All right, go to second base here. We talked about it on the show. They gave Rodolfo Castro second base only. Usually he's our go-to against lefties. We do like Steers, but again, a lot of power given up. And Rodolfo Castro, just another monster against left-handed pitching here, hitting fifth. So if you wanted to even just two-stack, you get the 3-5 connection with Connor Joe and Rodolfo Castro here. We'll touch on Brian Hayes in a moment as well at third base. But Pittsburgh, Oakland, not the greatest teams on paper, but some good matchups here at second base. If I'm, I don't really care too much to spend up outside of Semien here. So it's like Semien and it's Castro for me at second base.
Yeah, we just got a lineup that I'll pitch to you that I find something very interesting just happened at the second base position.
Okay.
But I largely agree. Tommy Edman, your boy, leading off $4,200. Now the good thing is you can play Tommy Edman in the outfield as well. So like if we wanted to play, because those are two guys I would say. Semien, if you're spending up, has hit righties extremely well this year, his whole career, and Rodolfo Castro. To your point, 317 ISO leads the team, 468 WOBA leads the team against left-handed pitching this year, hitting fifth in elite spot. I even wrote it in my playbook today, sneak peek. I said, I'm sure you guys are sick of me getting a lefty against Pittsburgh on the slate because I just write up Rodolfo Castro's name. But those are elite numbers. Like if you put those numbers next to like blank name, you'd be like Yordan Alvarez or Aaron Judge or like insert top player, not Rodolfo Castro.
Right.
So love Rodolfo Castro 35. My lineup note, John, is the San Diego Padres are leading off Rougned Odor this evening at $3,000, second and third base eligible.
I don't hate that because last time we tried to play him, he's hitting like seventh or something like that. Right?
He was still hitting well. Lefties against Kyle Hendricks have been the one spot that have really hurt him. Now, again, very small sample. Seems like everything on the back end is suggesting regression for Kyle Hendricks on both sides of the table. 347 WOBA for lefties, though. Thoughts on Odor leading off tonight?
I mean, again, it's hard to argue the numbers, but we know what he is as a player. So at some point, he's going to come back down, crashing to earth. But until he does, you gotta at least give him the opportunities in those lineups. I don't know if he is a one-off play for me because I just feel like there's more reliability in Castro. Or, I mean, you mentioned Edman. Glad I saw that he's leading off here because that was my question with him. Another guy that I've just been preaching, like lead this guy off against lefties because they had started Newbar or something like that.
Yeah, it was before the injury. It was Newbar, and then they were doing they started doing the Brendan Donovan thing.
Right, doing a lefty. It didn't make any sense. Tommy Edman against lefties this year, 333 average, a 596 slugging percentage, and a 984 OPS. Another guy where if you just hid the numbers and showed matched the splits, you'd be like, oh man, this is Paul Goldschmidt. Exactly. Right. And and then it just doesn't end up being a case. It's Tommy Edman. So he's even had 3 of his 6 homers against lefties in the year. So I like Edman a lot. Odor will definitely make sense if you're stacking Padres because why aren't you going to play the leadoff hitter at 3K when you can get Tatis and Soto right under them at their expensive price tags here? But Semien's only going to really fit in if you're playing. I would imagine Texas stacks at the the 6K price tag. But if I'm just picking a one-off second baseman today, it's probably Rodolfo for me.
Agreed. Just for one more note, Rodolfo is my number one play. Like minus like per dollar, Rodolfo Castro at second base. Um, Odor with a 221 ISO against lefties, not or against righties. That's not surprising because he has been pretty much all or nothing. But like those are big numbers for a guy in Kyle Hendricks who gives up a lot of fly balls. Like if he's going to continue to pitch up in the zone and all these fly balls, if Odor's not striking out, there's a lot of upside with him because he might hit a home run, right? That's
right
what it comes down to for me.
The Prince asking us Schwarber versus a lefty. Schwarber is a lefty.
He does have a huge ISO against lefties, but not anything.
He's hitting. He has 6 home runs against lefties. Great.
Yep.
151 average, a 420 slug, a 669 OPS. So another, if you are banking on a home run, sure. Now, to be fair, Schwarber's only hitting 170 on the year. So he's not really hitting well against anything. His better slug is versus lefties.
Right.
But I can't imagine this being the time to use Kyle Schwarber here tonight. Philly's outfield in general is a full fade for me. Not using Harper, not that he's in the outfield. Castellanos fine. I guess I lied.
That's my one exception.
Castellanos will work because he's hitting 300 against everybody. I would play Odor over Schwarber. That's what I would do. Play Odor over Schwarber.
Holy hot take. Rougned Odor over Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah. It's not great. I mean, it's better for Odor than Schwarber, but that's where I'm going here tonight. Any other second baseman for you? I mean, Dubon is leading off against Manoah. And he's got dual eligibility too, so we can play him in second or short.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. Lefties have been the thorn in Manoah's side, but as Mark alluded to before we even said our introductions, Manoah was going to, I mean, it'd have to be a lot of people to lift him off the field.
Well, it's spiritually.
Spiritually, true.
Spirit leaves his body.
Sorry, yes.
Off the field.
Yes. Yeah, I would play Dubon. Yeah, I'd play him. Look.
Another one, if you're stacking Houston, right? Don't you have to get Dubon in there just for the price?
Yeah. The top half of that lineup is really appealing because Bregman has been so good lately.
Yeah.
And you have Yordan and Kyle Tucker obviously in the best split advantage. So yeah, I mean, if you're playing Astros, Dubon makes sense because 2 hits, 2 runs, you're talking about he's already paying off value. But the only thing is like Rodolfo's $100 more. But I think you're right. If you're playing, forget what I was about to say. If you're playing Houston, Dubon works.
Yeah, Dubon's the guy if you're playing Houston for sure. Let's go to third base here. You mentioned Alex Bregman. He is my one top third baseman for the day. It's actually unfortunate. I did the PrizePicks video earlier today, and PrizePicks likes to sometimes withhold player props for as long as they possibly can. So I did the video this morning. I did Castellanos over 1.5 total bases. I still really like that. I did Corey Seager over 8 fantasy points. Still like that. Video's done. It's uploaded. It's sent. It's out there. Then they released the Houston props. Alex Bregman sitting at 7 fantasy points for tonight. I was like, I'm gonna do another one where I'm gonna play the over Alex Bregman 7 fantasy points in there as well. A guy that we talked about this year was like hitting righties pretty well, and really hitting righties better over the last few seasons after hammering lefties for a long period of time. Look at those last 10 games. 444, 1163, 639 OPS here. And we're just assuming that Alek Manoah is going to suck again. So, Bregman should be a big part of this offense for Houston tonight, just the way he's swinging the bat. So, yeah, give me Alex Bregman 5,200 as my number 1 third baseman on the slate.
Yeah, I think you can get to any of the top 3 over 5K, truthfully.
Sure.
Josh Jung has been rolling 410, 1100 OPS over his last 10 games. We know his power pedigree. He's been better against lefties, but still 180 ISO against righties is still solid. I will say, looking at Nolan Arenado's numbers, and it's a relatively small sample, massive numbers against lefties again this year. 357 ISO, 387 WOBA, not really striking out a lot. 53% fly ball rate at that. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a case to be made for all 3 of these guys. I like Manny Machado over on FanDuel. He's sub 3K. That just kind of fits my Padres narrative. Like, listen, I know Machado's been a corpse, and I even called him a fade on the podcast this morning, but that was at 4,800 on DraftKings. At 2,900 on FanDuel, I would definitely take a shot if you're playing Padres. Hitting fourth again tonight, so like they just really want this guy to break out of the slump, and they need him to.
Yeah.
But I think you could play any of those top three guys. After that, it's like kind of very, very bleak in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot. Again, Brian Hayes is $4,100.
Yep.
Hitting sixth. Again, we talked about Rodolfo's hitting fifth. Hayes is hitting sixth. Connor Joe's hitting third. Can certainly go there. If you're not in on Abbott, you could go Owen Miller leading off at $3,800. Brian Anderson's there, $3,400. Can certainly go in that direction, but there really isn't a lot of value at third base here tonight. You thoughts on Garcia maybe down here at 24 hitting sixth?
Yeah, I think the only other two options that I would take a look at are Michael Garcia, who has hit lefties in a limited sample, granted, but 233 ISO, 430 but he's also been really good lately. And a guy who got off to a really hot start when he was originally called up, and then really slowed down the last couple games. He's been really good, including a home run on Sunday. And then I mentioned him at first base, but Drew Ellis has the multi-position eligibility for Philly.
Yeah.
So, and he's been salary. Again, Philly's going to be tricky, John, because it is an amazing spot. Like, righties against Joey Wentz this year. And this is why when you're talking about like Philly's offense as a fade, I'm happy that you kind of went back to like, okay, yeah, I'd play Castellanos. Because righties against Joey Wentz, 390 WOBA, 237 ISO, 42% fly ball rate, 42% hard hit rate. Like they hit this guy really, really hard. So it's hard to like, I get why people would fade the Phillies, like you and I get why we'd fade the Phillies because they've been a team that they're priced like the Rangers, and the Rangers have the best offense in baseball, and Philly's like one of the worst offenses in baseball. Not name value. You can say that Philly has as much name value as anyone in the league, but hasn't.
They're actually not priced appropriately on FanDuel, where they're all like under $3,000.
Right.
Trey Turner's like $2,700.
Right, and so like I could see a scenario where like you're getting to them on FanDuel. I just don't love them on DraftKings all that much.
Yeah.
So.
But Ellis is min price. So
Ellis is min price, exactly.
Right. So that kind of helps that play there a little bit. Over at shortstop here, Seager's 59. Again, a lot of people picked him as their home run call. You had him on your tweet today. Again, I had him in my PrizePicks video as the over 8 fantasy points here. Just monster days here, back to back, 20 plus fantasy point out. It's 6 runs scored. They scored 28 runs in 2 games against Seattle. And now they have Adam Wainwright, who, is old, as we've alluded to, but like the last few years, he had been very good at home, but he had been abysmal on the road. Yep. And now he's on the road here when he is not pitching well 50% of the time. This feels like another big day coming for Texas. Hopefully they haven't hit out all their runs over the last few days, though, because I'm going to have a lot of Seager. Maybe 100% Seager, honestly, in lineups here tonight for me.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the rest of the position, it's bad, right? Like, it's bad. It's Seager, who is significantly better than every other play. Bobby Witt is good against lefties. Yes. I think nobody's really going to get there because a lot of people are playing Braxton Garrett, and Bobby Witt has shown a lot of power. Bo Bichette is very contrarian at shortstop, considering... Again, no one plays the Blue Jays 1. Everyone's playing Corey Seager 2. And Brandon Bielak has really struggled against righties. Like, I've said that for a few streams and podcasts now. Like, Brandon Bielak misses bats and he gets strikeouts. But he also, there's a lot of hard contact. Righties this year, 380 WOBA, 275 ISO. What's the one thing we know about the Blue Jays? They're righty heavy. Even though today they decided, let's just play all our lefties because analytics tell you, I guess, something different than what
the last 2 weeks. I know we like to talk about sample sizes and whatnot. Last 2 weeks, right? 14 days here against right-handed pitching. Number one team in baseball in WOBA against right-handed pitching, Toronto, 373. ISO sitting at 200. Their OPS against right-handed pitching there is OPS is at first 865, 504 slug, 304 batting average, just a 16% strikeout rate. So last 2 weeks, they are just mauling right-handed pitchers not named Julio Teheran, and everybody else, they're just smashing. So this could be a spot where, once again, like you said, nobody's playing Toronto on this slate because the Rangers just hung 28 runs in 2 days. And now you have Bichette at 55 and Springer and Vladdy in your lineup here at the top and to do some damage. But they're all hella expensive. So you got to find ways to find some value on the slate.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like, their top 4 hitters in tonight's lineup are all righties. Springer with a history of hitting everything extremely well, being an all MLB player. Bichette's obviously a superstar. Vladdy's a superstar. Chapman has superstar months, weeks. They can crush Belak here. So I think Bo Bichette is probably my contrarian shortstop. Mark, I don't know what Turner you're talking about. Can he finally wake up? I read he is waking up. Okay, I was about to say definitely not waking up, definitely still sleeping. He's still Snorlax, right? Like, Snorlax hasn't woken up yet, I don't think, or just a few times.
That one day you called him out and he homered, and you're like, hey, thank God.
Yeah.
And then he's had basically one double-digit fantasy point game in his last 7. So can he go back into the World Baseball Classic to find that power?
Please.
Was he using a cork bat then? What was going on then? So
I think they allowed metal bats in the WBC.
I have a question for you. Why is he hitting cleanup and not leadoff, where he was like the game's premier leadoff hitter?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I
mean,
he hit third for the Dodgers last year.
True,
because they were leading off Mookie. He hit 100, and he had 100 RBIs. Like, he just fell off a cliff. I don't know what happened, but
big contract. Sometimes guys can't play to it.
Sure.
We see it all the time. I agree with you though. And to Mark's question, who's our contrarian? It's Bichette.
Yep.
Toronto's usually the contrarian play if you want, because they have the offense that can hang with anybody in baseball on the right night. So I'm with you there. Bichette is the pivot down from Seager for me. Both expensive, but it's where I would go. I still think McLean at 4,700 is expensive. But I do like Cincinnati tonight in going up against Tehran, because I'm not a believer in Tehran here. Dubon, I'm happy that there's some value at shortstop, because we weren't really sure there was going to be much value at shortstop last night when we recorded the podcast. But getting Ezekiel Duran at 29 and Dubon leading off at 34, certainly 2 value plays that I think we can find ourselves looking at here tonight.
Yeah, those are the 2 names at the value tier. Duran is kind of the same situation we talked about over at first. If you're playing Duran, you're fading Seager. I'm hoping soon we'll get the Duran shortstop outfield eligibility, since he's starting in left field tonight. But 207 ISO, 339 WOBA against righties. He hasn't skipped a beat against righties.
Yep. And then again, if you're not in on Abbott, Monasterio here has been pretty good.
Yeah, he's been good.
Since getting called up, homered yesterday there. A couple of hits here. 6 games played on the year, but 412 average, 7 for 17. So they're doing everything they can maybe to find some righties that can hit. Adames is out as well. So could be a guy that comes up and boosts that lineup a little bit. Let's go to outfield here, James. We have Tatis, Yordan, Soto, Garcia, Springer, Tucker, all guys that I know that you and I are both kind of in on, depending on how we're building our lineups tonight.
Every single one. Every single one. Every name you mentioned. So, yeah. I don't have anything to add. I would say Yordan.
Who's your number one though? Last night you liked the Padres. Is it still Soto?
It's probably like 1A, 1B between Yordan and Soto. Yep. Okay. Those are like I would say I don't really have a preference. Yordan or Soto is 1A, 1B for me.
Yeah, I'm rolling Yordan here. Again, if Manoah beats me tonight, fine. But this is where I'm going to go with Yordan Alvarez tonight, $6,100 as my top play today on the board. I just, again, I'm just not a believer in what Manoah's been doing. It's been getting knocked around by everybody. So give me Yordan as my top guy. But again, I listed all those off. The only guys I'm not playing really up here, not going to play Reynolds and Harper. Probably the only 2 guys. I mean, I don't know why Morel's still over 5K, but Morel, Reynolds, and Harper are the guys above 5K I'm not playing tonight.
Yeah, pretty much. Reynolds. The only way you're playing any of those guys is if you're stacking those teams. Like, if you're stacking Philly, you're probably going to play Bryce. If you're stacking Pittsburgh, you're obviously playing Bryce.
If you're stacking the Cubs, do you even still play Morel? I mean, he's never hit lefties, so it's not really a good spot for him.
No.
Yeah, I'm full agreement with you there. If we're going into the mid tier down here, I do like Castellanos at $4,500. I could see you getting to Kutch if you like Pittsburgh tonight. Edmund still with that outfield eligibility. Anybody else for you?
It's Castellanos, really. I
Yeah.
wish Jake Fraley still existed in this tier because he was my guy. But it's really Castellanos and then just a couple value names.
Yeah. At 4K, I like Merrifield hitting sixth. I think that's fine.
Yep, righty,
I,
righty.
I like his story leading off at $3,600, and I know that you have a Ranger down here that you're a fan of as well.
Yeah, man. Leody Taveras has been awesome. I'm not sure people have really realized, and I know, like, it's fair because Texas has 8 other guys that have been awesome the entire year. But, Leody's just down here hitting ninth, hitting 306. Like, your 9 hitter is hitting 306 on the year. Um, Little power, a lot of speed. He hasn't stolen as much bases as I think everyone thought he would. But he is a threat there coming off a game he homered.
Yeah.
So I like Leody's. Has been
He's
really
hitting
good.
both sides of the plate too. Sometimes we
Dude.
have these switch hitters. They're like, oh, they hit really better from this side. The guy shouldn't even be a switch hitter. Nope, not Leotis. 310 versus righties, 295 versus lefties. Same slugging, same OPS. He's even got basically the same stolen bases, 3 against righties, 2 against lefties. Like, it's just steady across the board. I'm a good baseball player. I'm a professional hitter. So plus he's $3,400. And what do we talk about the 9 hitter all the time? He's the wraparound stuff.
Wraparound.
You can play Leotis, Simeon, and Seager, and there you go, right? Like you're ready to roll. So
and like him and Duran are like the only way you can really afford an entire Texas stack. Like, because the 1 through 6 is $4,500. 1 through 7 is $4,500 or more. Or more. 1 through 5 is over 5,000 with 2 of them over 6K. Like, so yeah, I think it just makes a lot of sense to get to someone like Taveras at 34.
Yep, like I said, and the fact that he's hitting 9th, you're not really losing much with the guys that are hitting behind him in terms of run potential. So I'm with you there. We talked Connor Joe already down here at $3,300 with the outfield eligibility. Thoughts on Jordan Walker down here at $3,100?
Yeah, love Jordan Walker. I know the 8th position is obviously like not ideal, but 214 ISO against lefties in limited sample. I really like this split for St. Louis, and I'm not like saying anything crazy. That's kind of been St. Louis's MO for the last few years. Like, lefties are where they've thrived. And Martin Perez against righties this year, 348 WOBA, 184 ISO allowed, 38% hard hit rate. So there's a lot to like about Jordan Walker. There's a lot to like about the Cardinals tonight. $3,100 is a really, really good price tag. And like, I know it doesn't exactly fit with like their whole wraparound nature, but like Edmund, Goldschmidt, Walker.
Yeah, it's
1,
reachable.
2, 8. Like, there's no reason to think if Jordan Walker doesn't double and Edmund singles that Goldschmidt can't come up with both of them on base for a potential
100%.
3-run home run, right? So Jordan Walker, 31. I like Jesus Sanchez if you're not playing either Royals pitchers tonight. He's been really, really good. The guy that we thought he would be last year with all the power, over a 230 ISO against right-handed pitching, hitting 302 on the year, by the way, 385 over his last 10 games as well.
Yeah, I'm with you there as well. Give me your home run call for tonight here, James.
I'm gonna stick with what I said on my home run call over at my Twitter account, which you guys can see right under my name here. I've been putting out a home run picture every day to see if anyone can get 3 in a row. Maybe some Arenado included to Prince. I was just saying, like, Walker doesn't correlate with Arenado as much as he does with Edmund and Goldschmidt because they're hitting first and second. So Arenado perfectly fine in your St. Louis stack. That's not what I'm saying.
I feel like we've had the same conversation about Arenado before with these wraparound stacks. He gets too far down the lineup to play with the 8 or 9 hitters. So works for the top of the lineup.
I'm going to go with Juan Soto tonight. I think the fly ball rate for Kyle Hendricks is a really big concern going up against Soto and the Padres.
Yep. I'm just going to go Yordan here again. I don't think much of Manoah here. I think this is a good spot. Plus, you're getting in Toronto, where we talked a lot about they moved the walls in there. It should be better hitter environment. So give me Yordan Alvarez for my home run call here. If you had to give a must stack for tonight, what team is your must stack, James?
If you guys follow me on Twitter, I also put out a picture. I built with 8 Rangers today. I don't know why I couldn't hit select, John. It wasn't
Yeah.
DraftKings. It must have been an error on the DraftKings side of things. You could get that lineup in, right? 8 Rangers.
Yeah,
I had one
yeah.
outfield spot. I had one outfield spot
Well,
left.
if you play 3 lineups, you can definitely get exposure to all of them. So
Texas is number 1 tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. Texas is my number 1. If I'm doing a contrarian stack here for tonight, Toronto is certainly the way. If we're going for a cheap stack tonight, I think Pittsburgh is what we've kind of settled in on here. A couple guys in Pittsburgh can get in that lineup to help save some of the money. James, let's build our lineups, shall we?
We shall.
All righty. Top pitcher. Who are we using here tonight?
Nola. I'm willing to eat the chalk on Aaron Nola. I think the only way we're gonna get some of these big bats and Texas guys is using Abbott probably as our SP2. I think that just makes the most sense.
So we're gonna plug Seager in at short.
Yep.
Second base, I think we're going Rodolfo, right?
Yeah, Rodolfo for sure.
Got to find some money savings there. First base. Do we want a Connor Joe? Or do we want to save?
Let's hold off on Connor. Let's hold off on Connor Joe because we could play him in the outfield.
Okay. Catcher, Yan Gomes.
Yep. Those are the first. That is the first 5 I had plugged in previously to you. Even us starting to build. That was the exact.
So we got 47-8 a play here. Again, we like Texas. We like Houston tonight. You know, I like Alex Bregman here at third base. I don't know if you think we can get there or not, but I think it's a good spot for him tonight against Manoah.
Yeah. So third is interesting because I was toying with because we both like Yordan and Soto. So I was toying with the idea of like double spending up at the outfield, and I don't know. It would either be spend down at first to get to Bregman, which I think might be better, or play Odor at third. Because if we did
Connor Joe at first,
so that's exactly Joe. You're about to build the exact lineup that I just built.
That you have Tatis, not Tatis, Yordan
and Soto, and then
700.
Wait, hold on. No, you click. What did you click? Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
This is gonna be the exact.
You want to do Leotes, or did you?
That's what I did. That was what I did.
Was that the lineup? See,
that was what I did.
Okay. I like this. You get your one-off San Diego Soto play. So we're not diving all in on San Diego here tonight because they've let us down more than we've liked to admit to. We have a little bit of the wraparound 9-2 for Texas here. Maybe not enough Texas, if we're being honest. Probably not enough Texas.
I mean, I'd be okay if we want to move off Soto and go to anyone, and we get
goalless, I guess, right?
Or
Nathaniel Lowe.
Go to Nathaniel Lowe. That's what I was.
And then go Connor.
4,400.
We don't have to do Connor Joe.
We can go Tommy Edman, 4,200 in the outfield if we wanted to do Nathaniel Lowe.
Yeah. Do you like Edman there, or would you? Connor Joe has more the power that we're looking for.
Sure.
So we have $1,100 to kind of mess around with here. What are our thinking here? We got a couple minutes.
I also went. I just toyed with a idea of going down to Jordan Walker off Connor Joe.
Okay.
I'm just messing with things just to see if anything opens up. It can get us Castellanos.
Can we get a Dolus in here? 55, 2,300. Anything down there? 23.
23 doesn't exist. I don't think.
No, Drew Waters.
Drew Waters is fine.
No, it's fine. All right, let's go back to what we had then. Leotes, we got a minute to go here. Leotes, $4,400. We can go Edman. That's fine. We also don't have to spend all of
Yan Gomes officially in the lineup, hitting 6th. He is DHing this evening.
Okay, do we prefer Bregman or Arenado? I prefer Bregman tonight.
I guess it depends on what you're doing. I like Arenado if you're playing Cardinals. I like Bregman if you're playing Astros.
You could go Goldschmidt to low if you wanted to get spend up there. So
you're not gonna. I have no problem getting to Goldschmidt at all.
Right. Well, we like Texas tonight. If you want to get Nathaniel Lowe in there, you got some money to play with. Otherwise, you can spend up for Goldschmidt. So that's our lineup: Noah, Abbott, Gomes, Goldschmidt, Castro, Bregman, Seager, Yordan, Tavares, and Connor Joe. Get in the Discord. We'll be until roster lock 6:40 lock tonight, guys. Good luck. We'll be back tomorrow morning.